Hi everyone, my name is Romain Trousset and I'm an animal nutritionist, but I'm also the owner of Amigo Pet Food, a brand of exclusive pet food made in Mossel Bay in South Africa. Today I would like to talk about pet food nutrition and particularly fats. What are they? Why are these nutrients so important? What does it do? And more importantly, is it a good criteria to judge about the quality of pet food? And finally, we will detail what is the makeup of fat and why this is so important to understand what type of fat we're dealing with. So fat is the ultimate source of energy for dogs. In actual fact, there is more than double the amount of energy in fat compared to carbohydrates or proteins, because dogs have the ability to use these three types of nutrients as source of energy. But not all fats are equal. So what makes the difference between vegetable oils like sunflower oil, ostrich oil, and poultry fat, for instance? I'm using these examples because they are commonly used in pet food. Well, at least the first and the last one, because ostrich oil is quite an exclusive ingredient, which we use at Amigo Pet Food, but that you don't find really commonly in pet food at all. Well, fat plays a very important role for dogs in their metabolism. First of all, it is a great source of energy. Dogs are able to oxidize fat and burn fat in their cells, in their muscles, as a source of energy. So their level of activity, their stamina, their energy overall is powered by fat very effectively. Secondly, fat also plays a role at the cellular level. Each cell of the dog body, remember, dogs are multicellular organisms. They are made of billions of cells that are all together forming the body. Each organ is made out of cells, each blood vessels, the skin, the eyes, etc. All of these organs are a multitude of cells next to one another. The wall itself of these cells is made out of phospholipids, which is a type of fat. So fats are playing a really important structural role in every single cell of the body of the dogs. Fats play also a very important role as energy storage, because unlike other type of nutrients, the dogs can really absorb and store the fat and in turn reuse it when it's necessary. Fat storage is a very versatile source of energy that dogs can use when they need. But fat also play a role in very complex functions in the dog's metabolism. For instance, fats, and particularly what we call essential fatty acids, like omega-3s and omega-6, play a role in inflammation. Omega-6 are promoting inflammation. They are used by the dog's body at the cellular level to trigger an inflammatory reaction, where omega-3s are used to resolve inflammation. And that's why it's very important in pet nutrition to control the ratio between omega-3s and omega-6. What you want ideally is a certain level of omega-3s, and you want to control the level of omega-6. So why would you like to control the level of something that is called an essential nutrient? Surely, if it's good by the spoon, it's good by the spade. Or not at all in the case of omega-6s. Actually, what needs to do in pet nutrition is control and limit the level of omega-6 so that you do not trigger a consistent inflammatory reaction in the dog's body. So why is it so difficult to control the level of omega-6 in pet food nutrition? Well, because you find them everywhere, really. In maize oil, in sunflower oil, and in soya oil, you find a high level of omega-6 and almost no omega-3s. In the case of sunflower, there's actually no omega-3s at all. So the more these ingredients feature in pet food, the more unbalanced the fatty acid profile will be. In other words, this is not the kind of fat you want for healthy pet food nutrition. But this is not where it stops. It will be, once again, too simple. In actual fact, the fat of the animals that are consuming those ingredients, maize, sunflower, and soya, as staple food as they're being farmed and grown on farms, like chickens, like pigs, and like cattle, the fat that you find on these animals also becomes very unbalanced with too much omega-6s and not enough omega-3s. So this is a real challenge to formulate pet food nutrition with a decent amount of omega-3s and limiting the amount of omega-6. There are two ways to play on the ratio. Either you increase the level of omega-3s or you decrease the amount of omega-6 to have the same effect on the ratio. But this is, once again, not as simple, because if you have an excess of omega-6 and you just keep topping the diet or supplementing your dog with omega-3s, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to produce the same effect. What you need is really to control the two at the same time. This is proven by science, and every day there are publications showing the same. I want to give you a bit more detail about omega-3s because I know I'm going to get the question. What is the best source of omega-3s? It's a very good question indeed. You find omega-3s in very few sources of fat actually. In the animal kingdom, mostly in fish oil and ostrich oil. In the plant kingdom, you find omega-6 in flax seeds particularly. Well, this is not exactly the same type of omega-3s that you find in both. In animal fats, such as fish oil and ostrich oil, you find two types of omega-3s called DHA and EPA. And these are really the two important ones for dogs. But in flax seeds, you find another type called ALA. And these three types are making all the omega-3s, right? But dogs need the first two. The EPA and the DHA are the essential ones, the important ones, really. They can convert part of the vegetal omega-3s called ALA into the other two, but this is a quite inefficient process, and it's once again impaired by the presence of omega-6s. In other words, the more omega-6s you have in a diet, the least favorable that conversion factor or ratio would be. So if you supply your dogs with a supplement based on plant omega-3s like flax seeds, you would find a very poor conversion rate into EPA and DHA. I know it's very technical, but I'm sure some of you would have asked the question. So this is really a lot of information, and I want to try to keep it simple and summarize what we've been discussing about. What I want you to remember of this video is don't fall for the typical marketing gimmicks of advertising omega-6. Really, omega-6, they are everywhere. And this is not a unique feature to find them in dog food. As soon as you have a minimum level of fat, you would have in excess of the omega-6 requirements. It's not saying that omega-6s are not important, but the level required by dogs is very low in actual fact. They're important for skin health, for instance, and they also play a role in the immune system. But you don't need them in excess. Actually, you don't want them in excess. What you want is omega-3s, and if possible, you want a good animal source of omega-3s. Ostrich oil or fish oil, as far as I'm concerned, are my favorite. With a reserve about fish oil in actual fact, because fish oil is very often coming from apex predators like tuna, and they tend to accumulate toxins by being at the top of the food chain. It's the story of the bigger fish that eats the smaller fish, that eats the smaller fish, that eats the smaller fish. And eventually, those toxins coming from all the smaller fish, they accumulate into the bigger fish, and you find them in fat, particularly in oil. Heavy metals, PCBs, they are particularly well known to accumulate in the fat of large fish. So be careful. If you use fish as a source of oil, also remember this is a great source of contaminant, so it must be controlled properly. So what is the key message about fats? After watching this video, what you need to take home is, number one, that fats are very important as a nutrient, and that's why it's compulsory to feature this on the packaging of pet food. By law, you have to disclose the minimum amount of fat that you can find in your dog food. But this is not sufficient as an indicator of quality. In actual fact, what you want to know is what is that fat made of? The fatty acids that are making up the fats, those building blocks of the total fat content, are also very important. And of course, for health, you want an ideal ratio between omega-3s and omega-6. What you want is really to avoid omega-6 in excess, and typically maize oil, sunflower oil, and soya oil as well are very rich in omega-6, very unbalanced because they're also poor in omega-3s. What you also want to avoid is fats from the animals that were eating this feed stuff, like pigs, poultry, and also beef cattle, fattened in feedlots. They've been consuming a lot of the maize, soya and sunflower, and therefore their unfat is also excessive in omega-6s. So stay away from this. So what you want to know already is where the fat in a pet food diet is coming from. And you will find that in the ingredient list by scrutinizing the list of ingredients and look for specific sources of fat. Don't let yourself be fooled by the typical marketing advertisement like rich in omega-6, with omega-6, contains omega-6, because omega-6s are everywhere. It's a little bit like buying air in a can or trying to sell ice to an Eskimo. There's plenty of this. So in a nutshell, fat is important, but it's only one of the tile to help you understand the bigger picture of the pet food you are dealing with. Hopefully we'll learn a bit more in the next episode. Thank you all and bye for now.